Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is inclusive design innovator, resilience entrepreneur, patent holder, brain injury survivor, founder, and author of children's books and social impact inventor, no other than Miss Tess Padmore.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me. And this is my first podcast, so I'm really excited.
Yes. And Miss Tess, can you please introduce more about yourself?
Well, I am retired. I have an MBA in business and accounting, and I worked in both academia, private, and public sectors for about 30 years. And then in 2006, I retired and I wanted to stay productive. And also, as part of recovery from a catastrophic illness, I started writing and I also got back in the pool and invented a swim cap that would fit my hair. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to be productive, but I also found my voice in the writing, and it's been very productive for me.
Miss Tess Padmore, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more, empowering advocacy to the world. And today, let's talk about grief, adoption, and emotional resilience in BIPOC families. What inspired you to have this advocacy that tackle tough topics like grief, adoption, and emotional resilience?
Well, I actually write creative nonfiction, not just children's books, but all my writing is based on my own lived experience. And the first book that I published, the children's book, Remember Rudy, deals with grief. And I actually wrote it the day that he passed away. And I was crying and I sat down at my desk and I started writing about him. And I remembered all the things he did. And so I wrote it as an essay. And then when my editor saw it, she said, "This should be a children's book." And I was really happy that she did that because once the book was published, I go out and I read to children. And what I had found, the book came out around the time before the pandemic, but around that time. And there were so many children grieving. And one of the things I realized is that oftentimes the first time children experience grief or death is when they lose a pet, a goldfish or something like that, or a grandparent. And so I thought that this was a good story to tell and to share with kids.
Why was important for your center of BIPOC families in these stories? And what is a BIPOC families?
BIPOC families are Black, Indigenous, people of color. That's what it stands for. And I think it's very, very important for children to see images of themselves in books. Or media. I remember when I was a child, I wanted to be a ballet dancer. And at that time, there was only one Black ballet dancer, and I found her photograph in a magazine, and I cut it out and I put it on my wall. And that was inspirational for me. The other impetus was my granddaughter, when she was about 4 or 5, she's 19 now, she lost her other grandmother, and she would sit on the couch and sob and sob and sob. So I also realized that children needed a mechanism to talk about that grief. Because oftentimes we think of children as not really experiencing things the same way we do as adults. But in reality, they do. Their grief, their feelings, their emotions are real.
How do your own personal or cultural experiences shape the advocacy that you create?
Well, one of the things that I do, which is really important, is going out to classrooms. So when I go out to the classrooms, because I did teach, not in public school, I taught at the college level. But when I go out in classrooms, I realize that The kids usually gather in a circle. I usually sit in a rocking chair, and I'm almost grandma. And I'm interacting with them. I don't just read. I tell side stories. I have anecdotes. I tell jokes. It's very interactive. And I realize that the children really love that. And it also gives me purpose because when I see their feedback, I feel as though that everything that I'm doing is really for the kids.
Why do you think children's books are such a powerful tool for discussing grief and loss?
I think it's an opportunity for parents, particularly if they have these books. It allows a safe space for adults to talk to children about loss and have an open conversation about what their feelings are, what their emotions are, and they can see how they may be experiencing something that the characters in the books are experiencing. And I think that's extremely important.
Very well said, Miss Dash. Very well said. How do your stories help children navigate complex emotions in a way that feels safe and relatable?
I Oftentimes what I do after I read the story, I debrief with the children and I allow them to ask questions. And usually what happens at the end, they'll tell me about a pet that died. But often, more times than not, someone will have lost a grandparent. And they'll get really sad. And before they have a chance to cry, the first thing I say to them is, what was the funniest thing your grandma or your grandpa did? Then they become the storyteller and the other kids embrace them, and then we all sort of laugh about what grandma or grandpa did. So the story allows them to relate to something that happened in their own lives, and I think that's important.
Really important indeed. And Miss Dash, what advice or what's one piece of advice you'd give a parent struggling to talk to their kids about grief?
What I tell, because I do get feedback from parents and I get feedback from teachers, and most times I may see them months after I've gone into the classroom and read to the students, and they'll tell me that the kids are still talking about the book and still talking about the different instances in the book. So I tell them there's a couple of different things you can do. I said, of course, you can just read the book, but I think what I usually tell parents is, first of all, have patience, take it slow, and when you get to a page in a picture book, ask the children questions about that. What do you see? What are the colors? If it's a page where someone's crying, what are you crying? Why do you think they're crying? So it becomes interactive, and I think conversation with them is the most important thing.
Let's talk about on adoption and identity, Miss Tess. How do your advocacy adoption in a way that affirming for adoptees and adoptive families?
I'm very much interested in adoption. When I was in undergraduate school way back in the 70s, I had done a research paper about adoption. And at that time, I found out that it was very difficult to place older children and children of color. In my own family, my mother didn't formally adopt, but we had children that lived with us that were from the neighborhood that she just took in and took care of. She eventually became a foster mother and she eventually adopted some of those children. My daughter is adopted as well. And so my family is an adoption family. And so I had a principal when I was talking about the Twin Tales book before it came out. I had a principal say to me that that book was needed in addition to grief, because she had been asking, she was a principal in elementary school, and she was asking some of the kids what they wanted to be when they grew up. And she said she had more than one of the children say to her, I don't care about that. I just want to be adopted. And so children are looking for families. children need families. And I think if we introduce the idea of adoption to children, then it opens their minds to accepting people who are not necessarily blood relatives, but can become family as well.
What are some common misconceptions about adoption, especially in people with color communities?
Some people are afraid to go through the formal process of adoption. They think that it's too expensive. They think that it's difficult. Most people who adopt, I won't say all, but most are looking for infants when there are children that are a little bit older or may even be teenagers that need homes as well. And the other situation is the issue of separating siblings. It's really important to try to keep that intact, those kids together as a family. And so I think that from my standpoint, I usually, when I go in and I read the kids, I ask them if they know what adoption is. And last time I had one child raise his hand and he gave the greatest answer. He said, well, that's when somebody comes to live with you, but they're not really your family. But then they come to live with you and then they become your family and you love them just like they're part of your family. And so we need to get information out there. There are subsidized adoptions. You can adopt if you're older. You don't have to be young. So I think information is really important to get that information out to people, that it's not a hurdle, it's not a stigma, it's not something to be ashamed of. Kids are looking for love. That's what they want. And so I couched it in the terms of my two pups who were rescue dogs, but I decided to use the term adoption instead of rescue.
How can storytelling help adopted children feel stronger sense of identity and belongings, Miss Tess?
I think that if they read stories about other adoptees, then they have something they can identify with and something they can relate to. It helps them feel less alone or different somehow. Another example is I mentioned earlier that my mother took in a lot of kids. That's what we
Yes.
did in the old days. When she was dying, those kids, now adults, were around her bedside. And so she was someone who gave those kids what they needed, which was love, support, and comfort. So I think it's really, people should not be afraid to adopt, even if it's an older child. I mean, you can have your own child and still struggle through the teen years. That's
Yes.
a given. So I say take the chance and give love.
Give love, love, love indeed. And Miss Tess, let's talk about the representation in cultural sensitivity. How do you ensure your advocacy authentically represent the diverse experiences of people with colors families?
Well, I am obviously a person of color. I write creative nonfiction, which means I don't have the imagination to make up stories. So my stories are real and they're a reflection of my life and my family. And we are a family of color. And so I make sure that I usually, the first two children's books are, they've got animals in there. They're about dogs, but the people are brown people. So they see the people. The upcoming book is based on my grandchildren, and they start their first garden. And so, again, we get to see two kids of color, their uncle of color, who gives them advice about how to start the garden. And I don't want to give anything away, but there's a mystery creature in the story that the kids don't find out about until the end. So we're hoping to get that out by the holidays.
Well, good luck for that book, Miss Tess, and looking forward for more success.
Thank you.
And have you faced any challenges in getting these stories published due to their themes?
It is extremely difficult to get books published. Typically, what you do, you send out packages and try to get an agent, then you get an agent. and then hopefully a publishing house will pick it up. Fortunately for me, and these days we can now self-publish. And self-publishing has come a long way. There isn't as much stigma associated with it. And as far as self-publishing, I make an effort to spend the money that needs to be spent so that my books are quality products. So when you look at them, you don't know that they're self-published. I started my own imprint that allows me control. Instead of getting royalties, I sell my books myself. And it's amazing to me just from reading in classrooms how widespread how many people know about the Remember Rudy book in this community? People will stop me and say, "Didn't you write the Remember Rudy book? I saw it in Barnes and Noble." Or a parent will say, "You read to my child's class. We have this at home." Because it's very important for me to be inclusive. I make sure that I made the decision that all my books will come in both English and Spanish, so that I'm trying to be as inclusive as I can. And when I go out to classrooms, usually we have grants so that every child has a copy of the book. And then I donate the Spanish versions of the books for kids who live in Spanish speaking homes so that their parents can share that experience with them as well. So it's my way of advocating for getting representation out there.
Definitely. And Miss Tess, how can educators and caregivers use your advocacy to start meaningful conversations with children?
For the schools, I think it's important. We have so many days on calendars that says it's National Adoption Week. It's National, I think next month is National Brain Aneurysm Month. So on those kind of occasions, I think it's a good tool and a good way to open a conversation if we want to talk about adoption, if we want to talk about pets. There's National Dog Day, there's National Cat Day. So there's so many opportunities for us to use these books to have conversations with our children. And again, I think we have to give children credit. Some parents will say to me, "Well, at the end of Remember Rudy, he dies." And I don't know if my child can handle that. And what I usually tell them is, don't read the last page to them. Just focus on the memories and the happy times. That way, when they're ready, then they can go further. And it's the last page. But I think that there are so many opportunities in the classroom. And sometimes parents are afraid to have difficult conversations with their kids, with their children. And I think that the books lend themselves to make it a lot easier. Twin Tales has no real doesn't really have much text. It's photographs. So it's a perfect opportunity to ask kids, what do you see? What do you see on this page? And it will help them with colors, it'll help them with numbers, it'll help them with letters, it'll help them with feelings. It just covers so much, just a broad spectrum of topics that they could really talk about.
Yes, indeed. And Miss Tess, as a inclusive design innovator, resilience entrepreneur, patent holder, brain injury survivor, founder, and children's author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Never give up.
Never give up.
Never ever give up. You just keep moving forward. Pick yourself up, brush yourself off. I became a writer in my 60s. Okay? I didn't plan to do it, but I did it. And when I started, I found my voice. And it's been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So the world is open to us and we need to explore it.
Try until you succeed, people. And Miss Tess, thank you for that goals and looking forward for more success and good luck. What will your piece of advice for those people out there want to be, of course, like you?
Follow your dream. Follow your dream. You just don't know. I've been told that I'm a person that likes to see what's on the other side of that mountain. So I tell people, don't be afraid. If there's something you want to do it. Don't wait. Live every single day like it's the last. And tell the people you love that you love them.
Yes. People love your family as you love
Yeah.
yourself. And Miss Tess, can you please recommend a books or book that influence you, Johnny?
Well, I am a big fan of Stephen King. Not his horror books, but actually his dramatic books, the Gunslinger series. And I have found those books to be very fascinating. I'm also a huge fan of Joseph Heller because he wrote with humor. He dealt with very serious topics, but he also explored the absurdity of those things. And so in my non children's books that I write, I try to focus on the world we live in and how we cope with it and how difficult it can be. But sometimes it's just absurd and we just have to laugh. But we have to keep moving forward.
Yes, people keep moving forward and try until you succeed.
Hey,
And thank you for that recommended book, Miss Tas. And do you collaborate with therapies, social workers, or adoption agencies when crafting your stories?
I will work closely with the mental health community. That's my closest connection is with the mental health community because there see so many people going through so many things right now. As I said, the principal who mentioned that there were so many children grieving and so many children just waiting for homes. And so my hope as my audience grows is to be able to connect with adoption agencies, to connect with mental health workers, to connect with teachers and principals. And I have to mention the school librarians because they're really important. They're the ones that actually get our books into the schools.
Miss Tess, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in third season in Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Tas, if there's one message you want people want to hear about our kids and adults to take from your advocacy, what would it be?
One, my author's website is going live August 15th. So
Yes.
please do visit us. I would say that my children's books, especially the one on grief, is read by adults as well who have lost pets. And they told me it has helped them a lot. Get involved with your community, give your time to kids. They're the underpinning of my entire business, both my swim caps and also my books. The kids are the future. They're the ones that bring about change. And so we need to nurture them. We really do and support them.
Yes, people, kids are our next generation, to generation to come. Let's empower them,
Yeah.
just like Miss Tess advocacy. So, Miss Tess, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Please check out our website, Egghead Soques. That's what's on the screen. We've got swim caps, and I've had a couple of inventions. We're all inclusive. We also have chemotherapy caps, which are important for emotional stability for people going through cancer. And check out our new website when it comes up on August 15th and look for the books.
Look for the books, people. Yes, let's support Miss Tess. Padmore, because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come. More and more empowering children's books to come. So, Miss Flash, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm working on a memoir.
Oh, yes, please do come over and let's talk about it on Book 101.
I will.
More to come, people. See you soon.
Thank you.